Welcome to the WriterDojo with your host, Steve Diamond.
I forgot I was going to use this quote.
And Larry Correia.
The power of one, the power of two, the power of Larry.
Today's episode, Problematic Edits.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the WriterDojo. Every now and then Larry does a quote that I'm not ready for, and that was that one.
I don't think it's actually the power of Larry. It's the power of many, but I made it cooler.
It's now it's written better.
Not hard. Low bar.
Rarely low bar. All right, everybody, welcome back. Today, so a couple weeks ago, Larry and I were talking. We were going through some stuff. We were talking about the various edits we received over the years and recently, because you and I both just had books come out recently. We finished them recently. Mine came out. Yours is about to come out.
Yeah. November.
In November? What day in November do you know?
Third,
Okay.
I think. Tuesday, whatever that is.
So we were talking about edits. Now, as it turns out, both our most recent books, mine being Catalyst and yours being Graveyard of Demons, were edited by the same guy. And we were talking about it and how the edits were pretty solid, fairly minimal.
Straightforward.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Yeah, very good stuff. But we've also had bad edits.
Yeah.
And recently I had a weird edit. A bizarre edit. We've talked about this a lot, the idea of sensitivity editors. Sensitivity readers, sensitivity editors. And we obviously said, like, those are dumb, stupid, and dumb. Like, what are we doing with this? This is dumb. Like, what are you even thinking?
They're like the commissars who come in and tell you to remove all flavor and joy.
Yeah. But I'd never really experienced it until recently. So I was doing, I'd written this novella, and I got this edit back on it. And I want to be clear about one thing. Aside from the sensitivity, quote unquote, parts of this edit, the rest of the edit was actually excellent, which is what makes the sensitivity portion of it even worse in a way.
So galling.
Yeah. Now, I wasn't pissed off when I got the edits because they were so crazy that I just started laughing. I was actually at a writer's retreat as I was doing it. And I just started laughing out loud. And everyone, and the other three guys that were at the retreat, they look at me and they said, what's going on? And so I had to tell them what's happening. Okay. So this episode, guys, if it's not obvious, this episode is about working with bad edits.
When to recognize that something is actually a good edit and when it's not.
That's right.
Because editors are human too. And some of them are they are fallible.
Yeah. So, as I was going through the edits, a lot of these edits were actually pretty baller edits. Like as I'm reading through, I'm going, man, this is great. The gal that was doing the edits, I'm like, wow, these edits are actually pretty good.
Yeah, the best edits are the ones that point out things that you missed that would make it better.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of it was that it was, hey, you're saying this, but up here you said this other thing. These two parts seem to contradict. Can you clarify that? Or, I'm not sure where this person is spatially. Stuff like that. Those are great edits. I like those edits. Anything that helps clarify the work for the reader, in my opinion, is a good edit. Okay. Anything that helps take boredom out and insert excitement is a good edit. Okay. And then
Let's hear about the bad edits.
I got to a part where they, this novella, it's in a fantasy world. Okay. Not our world, not related to our world, not a portal connected to our world, a completely separate world. It's a dark and grimy kind of sword and sorcery world. And in it, the main character is walking around and she's talking about the homeless around her. all of a sudden I get to the word, and every time I use the word homeless, it's been edited out. Using track changes like it just has the red line through it, right?
What did they change homeless to?
The unhoused. Because using the word homeless is problematic. That was the phrase.
Which is interesting because homeless is actually, historically speaking, a relatively newer term. In old days, it would have been something a lot more derogatory.
Yes.
You know?
Like filthy vagrant.
Bums.
Hobos.
Well, hobos were usually they were like mobile.
They were transitory.
Yeah, they were transitory. Bums were just there on the street. Or vagrants were like the geez, because I wrote 1930s.
There's actually a literal definition for each of those three that
Yeah.
stratifies them. I read it just the other day.
Modern times when I'm making fun of people, though, I like to call them derelicts and hobos because those are the funniest words for modern insults.
So as part of this, I saw it crossed out and I literally, it was like that record scratching sound.
Yeah.
I stopped and I'm like, what? And I look over and there's a comment bubble and it says, this is not a term that we use anymore. It's not, basically it amounts to, this isn't a nice term to use towards those people. It's insulting to them. I'm like, that this isn't a fantasy world, right?
Also, this tells me this person has never dealt with these people in real life.
Yeah. Yeah, this person's never been to San Francisco.
No. Yeah, we both grew up in California.
Yeah,
no, there's nothing nice about this.
Yeah, we've been to the Rio Grande area down in Salt Lake.
Yeah.
So the word that she replaced it with, basically, it looked like she ended up doing a kind of a search and replace for homeless to unhoused. Okay, whatever. But when you're reading the word unhoused, it doesn't work as a word.
Well, let's put it this way. We talked about how in the olden days there was different terminology, right? For people who didn't have houses. Homeless people, if you will, whatever. Okay. The thing is, everybody who's going to be reading this book in the year 2024, odds are they're of an age where the normal term used for people of that situation would be homeless.
Yeah.
Unhoused is like this happy BS word, politically correct word that's fairly new and getting shoved down people's throats. So when you put that, even though homeless has like only been used for like the last 100 years, right? Let's give or take. Everybody alive reading your book right now, that's the word. If they see unhoused, that's going to kick them right out. Even though homeless, like I said, is modern to us, but it's a fantasy word, that's the word that's going to make sense. Unhoused is going to come across as like some 2024 gender studies BS getting shoehorned in.
It's a record scratch moment. It's a glass shattering moment.
And this isn't me
It's
attacking
like,
the homeless or being insensitive to the homeless. I mean, I've done volunteer stuff. Okay, my daughters have worked at the shelter feeding people, right? So I'm not being a heartless dirtbag here. I'm saying, from the perspective of describing a thing, you're breaking the immersion. That is a bad edit.
Yep. And then,
oh boy,
the next term I came across was dark. Dark.
Okay.
I was describing, because it turns out in a weird dark fantasy sword and sorcery world, well, I guess I shouldn't have said dark fantasy. I was just being oppressive right there. I described a dark ritual.
Ritual that wasn't as well lit?
I don't know. She crossed it out and said, you can't use that word because it's offensive to people of color. And I'm like, what?
But you're talking about like nighttime dark, right? Like
I was talking about a dark ritual.
Okay, so like
an evil ritual.
Dark is in the terms of like evil magic.
Yeah, and you can't misconstrue the word dark with evil because that's bad.
Like everything that's ever written about magic, good and evil magic ever.
Uh-huh.
Okay. That's wow. Okay.
Yes. So I obviously, the great thing about when you have track changes, when an editor uses track changes, is you can click the reject button.
Oh, yeah.
And it's oddly satisfying. Next, we had the word master. And in the edit, it said, obviously, this is a term that refers to slavery and colonialism.
Oh my gosh.
And they said, For example, we are not even using the word master bedroom anymore.
Yeah, we are.
So, yeah. So there's one point where the character's dealing with basically a person who summons demons. And that person summoning demons
Using magic
is
of
using the
less
same,
illumination.
Yes, using magic of
Dimmer.
of no illumination, of colors that are not
Vibrant.
not vibrant.
Is shadowy.
Was
bad?
referring to his master, that was a giant frickin' demon from hell. And the comment was, well, why don't you use the word that he would actually refer to this person? And I'm like, you mean master?
It's a demon from hell. What do you think you're going to call it?
Like,
Frank?
and there was the demon,
Frank.
John.
John. Bill.
Let's be real. In cinema these days, it's always Steve.
Steve. Steve the demon. I think that was actually the name of the demon in Tom Stranger.
Steve.
Steve the Balrog. It's like, I mean,
Yeah.
wow. Okay, first off, I still will use the term master bedroom because it's a friggin' master bedroom. That's what it's called.
Yeah.
I don't give a crap about people's modern stupid feelings, but the thing is, shoehorning this in, if I was to shoehorn that into an urban fantasy novel, it wouldn't sound right. If I was to shoehorn it into some Oprah Book Club literati twaddle in the year 2024, it'd fit right in, right?
Yeah.
Because it's that audience. You're writing a dark epic fantasy. I'm sorry, and it's the dark as in
How
the
dare you
opposite
use that
of
word.
light. It is what it is. And as far as like the whole, it was reeks of colonialism, slavery. Does your world have slavery in it?
Well, yeah, but it has nothing to do with the color of a person's skin.
Yeah. Okay. So
Because it's a fantasy world.
So the Black Sword has slavery, and slavery is actually a step up from the lowest caste. And the thing is, everybody's the exact same color in this continent. It's one continent. Everybody is of the same genetic heritage, basically. There's very little variation and a lot of intermarriage between the groups. And damn right we use the word master. Electricians use the word master.
Yes. You've mastered something.
Yeah, it means you are the highest level of your craft. And if you have like some sort of organization of your craft, you know, it's shooting.
Well, and
I'm a master class shooter.
yeah.
That's what it says on the card.
Well, and in reality,
Oh no,
too,
that expired years
it's-
ago.
It's actually a little, that particular word, it was the deletion of it within my manuscript was being done disingenuously as well. Illogically, let's say. Because if she's saying you can't use that's bad. Okay, well, I'm referring to the bad people that are using it. So therefore, I'm not glorifying it. Isn't that better in your myopic view?
These are all changes that if you apply a little bit of logic to it of like what your audience is and what the product is, you can say these edits make no sense.
Yes.
And I like how the edits that she did for you that were actually literary, constructive.
Dude,
edits
they were awesome.
Were great.
They
were
were
fine,
awesome.
professional.
They were some of the best edits I've had, if I'm being honest with you.
But when it gets into the PC modern language distortion Orwellian BS,
It feels shoehorned, illogical.
dude, that's like a
ridiculous.
microcosm of everything else in the entertainment business.
It is. It is. It is. One of the things that you and I say a lot about, say, cinema these days is that, you know, we talk about various movies, right? And one of the things we always say is a lot of movies are like 95% good. It's that other 5% that destroys the movie, right? So, you and I talked about things like our favorite punching bag for this stuff is like Prometheus and Alien Covenant.
Oh, yeah.
Because 95% of those movies are actually okay.
Oh, yeah. And
But the
beautifully
5
shot. And,
gorgeous shot.
but 5 minutes
But
of
5%
utter
of
friggin'
those
nonsense.
movies ruin the other 95%. That's kind of how some of these edits are,
Yeah.
right? Where almost all the edits are pretty solid, but 5% of them kind of hurt the rest of the edit. Now, I'm a mature individual. Again, I wasn't upset by these edits. I laughed at it. And the people around me, when I was showing them the edits, they're like, surely you're exaggerating. And I turned the computer screen and showed it to them, and they're like, oh, wow, that person really actually wrote that. I'm like, yeah.
It's like, I'm sorry, you didn't realize who you were talking to.
Yes, it's
You
great.
mistook me for someone who gives a crap about this stuff.
Yeah. So, that stuff doesn't bother me. I'm able to just hit the reject key a couple times and then move on. And then take the other edits that were really good. But a lot of people can't do that. They can't, they won't see the difference between there. They won't, these days they're afraid to reject that side of the edit. And you as the author, it's your prerogative to accept or reject edits. Now, if you've submitted for a short story and there's a very specific theme and the editor has a very specific image in mind for that anthology, it's probably in your best interest to just go with the flow and accept edits, as long as they're not stupid. But in this case, I'm like, what? But before we go to break, let me tell you exactly what I did to these edits, Larry. Not only did I reject them, I looked for every opportunity to add those words in more. It's like there's that meme that goes around where it's Michael Scott from The Office, and he's like, well, I'm gonna do it harder, and that's what I did.
Nice. As you should.
Now, the only time I did make a change to one of the words is, and this was like within the span of 3 paragraphs, I'd used the word homeless 4 times. That's just using the word too much.
That's just word repetition, yeah.
So I changed it to filthy vagrant instead of homeless. We'll be right back.
They're specialists, corporals, and petty officers. They're the military personnel who have learned some leadership and gained experience in their specialty. Work smarter, not harder is their watch phrase, followed by, if you ain't cheatin', you ain't trying. The masters of avoiding work, getting up to shenanigans, and when a mission needs to be completed or a job done, it's an E4 that others turn to. They are the near-mythical E4 Mafia, and their ability to avoid work, solve problems, and create trouble is the stuff of legend. Henchman Press presents 11 stories of the E4 Mafia in a variety of settings and situations sure to thrill and entertain anyone with an interest in military fiction, science fiction, a sense of humor, and the curiosity to peek under the rug to see what got swept there. Get Tales of the E4 Mafia from Amazon.com today.
All right, everybody, welcome back. All right. Now, I talked about the type of edit where, more or less what the sensitivity edits are these days.
Right.
Right. And how absurd they are, and frankly, how unnatural they are.
Like you said, unhoused doesn't flow off the tongue.
No, it doesn't read well.
It feels shoehorned in.
Especially these days when so many of us have audio in mind. Think about how the sentences sound. Like a lot of times that's how I'm doing it when I read the stuff out loud. Or if I'm having trouble with the sentences I'm writing it, I'll start saying it out loud over and over again just to see audibly what it sounds like. And to talk about she passed the homeless guy who was sprawled out in the gutter. That sounds fairly natural. I passed the unhoused man who was sprawled out in the... It doesn't... I don't even like saying it. It doesn't flow right.
It's just a descriptor. And it's like the good or bad of the descriptor is predicated upon the situation it's presented in. Because during the break, we were mentioning I was homeless when I met my wife.
Yeah. You were unhoused.
I was unhoused. No, I wasn't unhoused. I had no place to live yet, and I was sleeping on a buddy's couch whenever I could. I was couch hopping until I got enough money to get a place. Yeah. It's one of those. So the word itself has no context beyond the situation. right? And so shoehorning that in for sensitivity is just foolishness.
I mean, I can think of a number of situations where I would use the word unhoused, but it's with a specific goal in mind. It's a specific word choice.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, unhoused, describing a person who had no hope, hopeless, unhoused, unloved, unremembered.
Yeah, I mean, if I was going for some alliteration with a bunch of U's.
It would be an artistic choice.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Shoehorning that in arbitrarily? No. Dumb. Stupid. No. Don't do that. Honestly, like one of the things is recognizing the edits, and I think this is the quality of edits comes with what your level of experience is. So when you're starting out, especially if you're like your trade, traditional, and you get picked up and the editor says change this, this, and this, you're pretty much going to do it because they know better than you. And they probably know better than you, and plus they're the ones writing the checks.
And and I'll talk about this next, but there is a danger here too.
Right. So there's that. And we talk about like our buddies who've had bad edits that have actually ruined the books.
Yeah.
We've seen that. We've talked about that on the show before.
And not only ruined their books, but almost ruined their careers.
Yeah. Well, where the editor made a ham-fisted decision that was illogical, but the author was in a position where they couldn't fight back, and they said, okay, and they did it, and it screwed the book. Mm-hmm. We've seen that. We talked about that a couple episodes with our buddy John.
Yep.
So recently a couple years ago, I did a short story. And at this point in my career, when I do a short story for somebody, it's a favor.
Yeah.
It's because I want to, and they want to put my name up at the top of the authors to sell more
copies. It's a project where you go, that'd be cool.
That'd be cool. And this was one, it was actually a fun story. It was actually a comedy story. And, but there was two editors. So there was the big famous person, and then there was like the junior editor who was a new, but that's the person. Yeah, that's the person doing the scut work, basically, right?
Yep.
So, but that person, it was a comedy story, but that person didn't get a lot of the humor that I was trying to do.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, humor can be
so subjective, right? And I'm actually pretty good at it. And plus, I'm depending on the audience. Obviously, the people who use the word unhoused seriously are going to hate everything I say. But, so I did this, and he sent back all these edits, but it was all like correcting the grammar or like the dialogue of the comedy bits.
Oh yeah.
To be like, it's like, well, it's like, well, yeah, it's grammatically incorrect because that's one of the things that makes it funny.
Yeah.
Because it's human interaction, and so I just went through and I went through all the track changes. Like no, and I got to the end and I was like, I'm rejecting all your changes. Well, I mean, anything that was like copy edit stuff was fine.
That's
right?
fine. Yeah, if they're like, get rid of this comma.
I mean, you used the word,
that word.
You used the word and, whatever.
Yeah, that doesn't matter.
Whatever. That stuff happens. This needs a comma, whatever.
Yeah.
That, fine. But I got to the end and I was like, I know more about this than you do. I was like, if you got an issue with this, take this to the senior editor. Yeah. And it was like, no offense. I wasn't trying to be a dick or anything. I was like, you're wrong.
Yeah.
I'm right, you're wrong. I know more about this than you do. I was Ron Swanson at Home Depot.
Yeah.
He was like, can I help you? He was like, I know more than you do. And he just keeps walking.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I just Ron Swanson it. And then got back from the senior editor. Was like, oh yeah, you're fine. I get it. He's like, okay, cool. And actually, it was a really, really funny story.
Yeah, I know which one you're talking about.
Yeah, it was a great story. And so there's stuff like that. And so no disrespect to the junior editor there. But sometimes editors don't know what they don't know.
Well, and sometimes they do not understand the story that they are reading.
That's sadly...
on a fundamental level.
Sadly more common than you would think.
So I've written books where the editor of the book did not understand the genre.
Yeah.
Okay. I've written stories where that was the case. I'll say this, and I'm not, and I got to be clear here. I'm not upset with the editor. I'm not upset with the editor at all. It's just that this editor didn't understand the genre I was writing in.
Yeah.
I was writing supernatural thrillers. Okay. I was writing Residue and Parasite. Okay. The editor at one point went through the redo of Residue, and he cut 30 or 40,000 words out of it. And I'm like, what? First of all, that's excessive.
No, that's excessive.
Especially since the book was like 75, 80,000 words.
That's a massive structural cut at that point. That's cutting out big parts of the building. that hold the walls up.
Yeah. And a lot of what he cut out was a lot of the internalization of the main character in the first person point of view. And I'm like,
Which is one of the strengths of first person point of view.
And the editor had trouble with the supernatural elements of the story. He didn't understand them. And at first I was,
Why are there werewolves?
Like I was a little pissed off as I was reading through it. I was getting angry just because there was so much, call it ink on the sheet.
Yeah.
And as I was going through it, I'm like, oh wait, he doesn't understand supernatural. Like he doesn't understand where this comes from.
It'd be like asking me to edit a Harlequin romance.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I don't know what is the genre conventions.
Yeah. I'm not going to be the guy to help you with that.
Yeah.
Right.
I would not be the guy for that. I mean, I could give you a copy edit for that.
Sure. Yeah. I can read it and I can tell you like, hey, this sentence doesn't flow right. Or you use this word too many times.
I would have chopped the hell out of Twilight. It made $1 billion. I mean, apparently for its market, it is what it is. It's great. Right. And for me, it's like, I would have butchered that thing.
So
I would have
part
been
of this-
wrong too, because she's made a lot of money.
Right. Now, part of this is me saying, one, understand yourself as well and realize that it's not personal. In a lot of cases, it's not personal. In this case, he was doing the job that he was asked to do, and he did it according to his own standards and conventions, which did not match the standards and conventions of the genre of story that I was writing.
Yeah, sometimes they just don't know anything.
Sometimes they don't match.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's not,
They don't know what they don't know.
yeah, that's not your fault. In a way, it's not even their fault. It's just bad timing, wrong place, wrong time, wrong people.
Right.
Okay. But that's also where, when, like what you were saying, you need to know yourself and you need to understand what is good and what is bad.
The more experienced you get, the easier this is going to get for you. Because the more experience you get, the more analytical you become. Mm-hmm. Where you can look at a situation and be logical and rational, and also check your pride at the door. Because even like I'm pretty successful, and I know I'm a pretty good writer. Like objectively, I'm a pretty good writer. But I can get to a situation where I'm just too close to it. So when I'm getting an edit and I don't initially agree with that edit, I need to check myself. I need to step back and I need to look at it objectively and say, is there something to this? Are they right and am I wrong? 99% of my edits are small things where I'm like, okay, yeah, that's...
It doesn't matter.
On this last book that I did, one of the things because you fall in these traps because it's like a mental... your brain just does things subconsciously. And I noticed I would start things where the sentence would be like, but... something, but I go except something, or only something.
I've seen you do this.
I do that.
I've seen you do that.
Yeah, I do that. And I fall into a mental trap where I do that.
Yep.
And that's just a basic grammar thing.
And that happens to all of us, right? Like,
well, I talk that way. Uh-huh. So if it's in dialogue.
Except, I'm just kidding.
Except I do talk. Yeah, exactly. I mean, but so in dialogue, so when I get those edits, I'm like, I just don't see that. I'm too close. Mm-hmm. That's a fair edit. So I'll go through, and if it's in character dialogue, I'll go ahead and leave only or except or whatever. But if it's... I did that on purpose. If it's in narrative, then I'm going to change it, right? And that's one of those things that we do. So that's a fair edit. But I have other edits where and so my last editor was Dave Butler, who I love. I think Dave's awesome.
Yep, and he does a great job.
And overwhelmingly, I agree with Dave's edit, but he had a couple where he would point out that this is something else we talked about. This is something that I do. I'll have a point of view character, observing somebody else, and that other person will realize something or think something, or just have something where it's internal to that secondary character. Yeah. But the point of view character will say, so-and-so realized they were wrong. And it wasn't that that I was head hopping into the other person. It's just that their realization was so obvious.
Yeah.
So I could rephrase it and said, well, it seems like so-and-so realized they were wrong.
Yeah, but that becomes overly wordy. And it just doesn't sound good.
Well, it's one of those. And so what I'll do when I get that kind of edit is I will go back and I'll read it out loud. Once again, like I said, I think about this like it's an audiobook, and think about like you're the audience absorbing this. I will read it out loud, and does it sound like a normal thing? And what I've discovered, because this is something I do quite a bit.
If it sounds fine, it is fine.
Well, so if Dave gave me 4 of those, I would actually change one to be more clear.
Yeah.
But the other 3, I'd be like, it's okay. But this is something that I've gotten, and Dave once again is like, hey, it's a stylistic choice.
Yeah, he did the same thing to me on Catalyst.
Yeah, because Dave's a good editor, and so Dave gets it. Dave understands. He understands the difference between stylistic choice and unhoused.
Yeah, he's not going to use that.
He's never going to do that because he's actually a good editor.
Yeah.
So I don't know. There's I think it's knowing when to accept edits and when to reject edits is going to come down to a personal practice and experience thing. When in doubt, read it out loud.
Yeah, and I think that...
And be honest. Be honest with yourself.
Yeah, and I think that's part of it too. Like, I think the especially if you get a heavy edit, whether it's a fair heavy edit or not, your first reaction to most times you see an edit is, "Are you kidding me right now?" Like that. Like my first reaction is almost always, "Ugh."
There would be times where I'll get my edits back, and I will spend one day going through them, like going through the track changes, right? And then it's like accept, deny, because whatever. But then there'll be one that'll be like, deny. And then I'll like, I'm not sure. And so
Control Z.
I will leave that one.
Yeah, and ruminate on it.
And I'll go through and I'll do the rest of the manuscript. And then I'll come back the next day and there might be 2 or 3 of these.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, okay. And these are usually smaller things. Big structural things, you usually know viscerally pretty fast if it's legit or not.
Yep. And one of the questions I ask myself, especially when I've got a lot of edits, is I look at the question, and sometimes my first inclination is of anger and dismissal.
Well, because you take it as a personal attack.
Yeah, and a lot of times it isn't. But I look at it and I ask myself the question, does it matter? And if it doesn't matter, then it doesn't matter.
Right.
Like it's sometimes it's easier to just go, well, they changed the order of those 2 words. Does it matter? No, accept.
Right. Yeah. And that's
like, it doesn't matter.
There are some authors out there that are legendarily jerky about edits, and there's some auditors that like supposedly they don't even get edited because they're too big to edit.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, like Stephen King, Stephen Erickson, those guys don't really get edits anymore.
The thing is though, Stephen King can blow his nose into a tissue paper, and they're still going to publish it and sell X number of copies.
Yeah, well,
because his name's on it.
This is a return on investment issue at a certain point.
And I mean, I'll be honest, I can't stand Stephen King. Like on a personal level, I think the guy's disgusting. Mm-hmm. We usually don't talk trash about other writers. The day we're recording this, guys, is 48 hours after somebody took a shot at the president of the United, or soon to be president.
Ex and soon to be, maybe.
Yeah, and clipped him in the ear. And Stephen King's out there whining about gun control after spending the last 8 years talking about how evil Nazi, sexist, racist are going to make The Handmaid's Tale. And I can't imagine why anybody would take that, raise the temperature. So I think on a personal level, I'm getting a little off topic here. When you got an egomaniac like that who has been coked out of his mind for 20 years lecturing the rest of us about how we should be better people, he doesn't take edits. So, more power to him because his publisher is still going to sell X number of copies no matter what. Thing.
Like if just removing him as a person out of the equation, if I'm the publisher, why am I going to waste resources and time and cycles on edits for a person
who's going to reject him anyway?
Well, who reject him anyway, and it doesn't matter.
We're still going to sell approximately the same number of copies.
You will sell probably exactly the same amount of
because
copies.
we're still running off of inertia from the 1970s and a whole bunch of movies and nostalgia.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys can tell my opinion of this fine individual.
Well, and I've been, I dislike him as a person, obviously for there's a lot of reasons why, but I'll be
paid for Pablo Escobar's hippos.
Probably.
And now he's going to tell you how you're a bad person.
But I'm also the guy who will say something like, oh no, I think he's one of the best short fiction writers in the world.
Oh, he's done some fantastic short fiction. No doubt.
I think 11/22/63 is a masterpiece.
But he's written like 150 books or whatever, and some of them are pretty
Some of
dang
them
good.
are going to be really good.
Yeah.
Right?
So respect where it's due.
Yeah, right. Point is, when you're at a certain part of your career, people are going to stop telling you what to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, also too, the thing was like when you're at a certain part of your career, you also should be enough of a master of your craft.
You can't say that word.
Expert boss person,
An expert career person, a subject matter expert.
just not anything dark
Yeah. No, you can't say that word, Larry.
or the unhoused crisis.
Yes, the unhoused crisis with no illumination of experts.
Okay, but so as a master of your craft, you should have a pretty good grasp on when something's weak. And like I said, a lot of times when we miss it, it's because we're too close. Like I said, I've done 25 books now. Or no, I'm sorry. I added it the other time. This is book number 29.
Oh,
I'm working on book number
Okay.
29 right now. So I'm 29 books in. Usually I can tell when there's something weak,
yeah.
when something could be better. Even if I myself don't know what the answer is, why it's weak, a lot of times that's something an editor is going to come in with that extra distance and be like, what about this, this, and this? And I'm like, okay.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yep.
You see what I'm saying? But as a master of my craft, part of being a master of my craft is I have to have the recognition of my own fallibility.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, most master craftsmen are going to recognize their shortcomings,
Yes.
and whatever it may be. I mean, you could be a black belt in a martial art. You could be a UFC champion. You could be a grandmaster shooter. I'm going to use that word extra now.
Well,
extra
I
hard.
mean, if like, I'll use a sports analogy because everyone knows I love my
You
sports
love your
analogies.
sports.
Baseball. Okay. I love baseball. Everyone knows I love baseball. I love watching the current baseball phenom that is Shohei Ohtani.
Oh,
from
you've talked
Japan.
about him before, yep.
I love watching him play.
His weakness is business managers.
That too. And also, he has a very obvious weakness for the pitch that is up and in to him, kind of at his hands, like letters and hands. And the best pitchers are doing their best to take advantage of that weakness, right? He knows it's a weakness. So he's trying, it's obvious watching him play that he's trying to compensate for that by he'll either
trying to
change
train
his swing
accordingly.
or whatever. He's probably one of the best baseball players on the planet at this moment. I mean, at any given day, he's top 5. Depending on the day, he's top 1. That's how good he is. That guy is self-identifying what his weaknesses are.
Yep. And that's one reason he's so damn good.
That's why he's so good.
Yeah. I heard Michael Jordan talk about that.
Yeah,
it was
100%.
recognizing where he fails
Mm-hmm.
and just trying. As what the GOAT is, like one of the greatest players of basketball of all time. Recognized where he was weak and worked harder.
Yeah.
Opposite of LeBron James, who just cries. Just
Correct. He's
whines
too
like
busy trying to get his money from China.
whines like a giant whine baby.
Yeah. The China James.
Boy, we're just out in my opinion on all sorts of people on this
It's
episode.
fine. It's fine.
Any other famous people you want me to say if I like or not?
I know.
I've actually got nothing against Taylor Swift. Okay, there you go, guys. I have no opinion.
She's like Mexican food made with cheddar cheese. It's unholy and fake.
It's Velveeta.
Yeah.
Oh wow, dang. Oh, that's whew.
So anywho,
Oh, that's hard, man.
my point here is this.
Steve
guys.
likes his tacos.
I do. You need to develop this as a skill, guys. Just like anything else, your ability to write is going to be something that you develop over time. That's great. Hopefully, you're going to get better with every story that you write. But as part of that process, especially these days where self-published authors are so much more involved with their own processes.
Because they're usually hiring their editor. It's not somebody assigned to them against their will.
Yes. Which means you have a little bit more say, which means you can go out and hopefully avoid the person who doesn't understand your genre.
If you're the one writing the checks, you have the ultimate say. We talked about this on the episode with Christine about hiring freelance editors, and I remember she talked about specifically hiring the right editor and finding someone who understands what you do.
Yeah.
I think that's huge for indie guys.
Yeah, she was when I kind of told her how I'd receive these edits from a person who obviously didn't understand the genre I was writing in. She just kind of looked at me and went, "And you didn't hire me? Why?" And I laughed and I'm like, "You're right. I should have because she knows me personally.
Yeah.
She knows the style of writing that I have,
And she gets what you're going for.
And she writes that kind of stuff under pen names and stuff and ghostwriting. So, like, yeah, she would have been an ideal person.
Yeah, she would have been a good fit.
You know, now the interesting thing is the edits that I was talking about in the top half of the episode with with my problematic no words. I talked to the publisher that's going to publish it, and I'm like, "Hey, look, just want to tell you," I gave them feedback. I said, "Hey, look, I got those edits. I laughed. Understand, I'm not offended. Like, I laughed, but I rejected all of them that were of that nature." I said, because I'm not going to self-censor using unnatural words for people that actually probably aren't even going to read this and don't care. Like, that, I'm putting my foot down on that.
Yes.
And his reply was, "Oh, yeah, I knew as soon as he's like, I knew." And I said, "You know what?" I said, "I would actually work with this editor again. I would just give her the feedback of, hey, no sensitivity stuff.
Don't you dare give me any of this.
No politicese. No political type.
Don't
stuff."
cry at me about cultural appropriation because a Chinese restaurant has egg rolls.
Right.
I'm sorry, a Thai restaurant has egg rolls.
It was Thai.
Yeah, because we know of an editor that threw a temper tantrum about cultural
Right.
because a Thai restaurant had egg rolls.
Yes.
It's meat fried in dough.
Yeah. It's one of the most universal foods in the
And
world.
Thailand's right next to China. I'm sure at some point in time, a Chinese person made an egg roll in Thailand.
Was she pissed off that Italians use tomatoes? Because tomatoes aren't native to Italy.
Hey, I'm Portuguese. We brought everything everywhere. If they're wearing pants and have guns, it's because of my people.
That's right.
Hell yeah.
Glad of the pants. So my point here is this, guys. It's as time goes on, you're going to develop this. This is a skill, okay? But you have to understand the situation of it. So again, if you're writing a short story where it's the theme is vampires in Civil War or whatever, and the editor says thou shalt not have humor, don't get butthurt if your story had humor in it and the editor wants to edit it out. That's the rules of the anthology. That's fine. For some of your novels, especially if it's some of your first time going through, you might get edits that you're kind of like, oh, maybe this is too much or whatever. Ask yourself if it matters. If it doesn't matter, save yourself the brain power. Fight a different battle. That one doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. But if they're asking you to compromise on something like Nick Cole, okay, some of the edits that he received.
I don't think they gave him a chance to edit it. I think they just bumped him.
Well, they said edit it, and he said no.
Okay.
And then they said, well, then we're bumping you. And he said, well, F you then. Okay. He took a moral stand. Okay. And he had to face consequences for that. Now, he turned those into positive consequences for himself.
His career is much better off now.
It definitely is. So my point is, this is going to be a skill. Okay. It's okay. It's okay that you're going to struggle with it in the beginning, and it's okay that you're going to grow. And years down the road, you're going to look back at your earlier stuff and say, I wish I hadn't done that, or I wish I'd done that a little differently. That's okay. That's okay. Don't worry about it. You have enough things to worry about without worrying about them. Okay. So anyway, if you guys have any other questions about this, let us know. Shoot us the questions. Ask them in the Facebook group, whatever. And hopefully you guys get good edits. Or at the very worst, you can at least laugh at the edits and have a good time. So this is the Writer Dojo. See you on the next one.
Writer Dojo is Steve Diamond and Larry Correia. Produced by Jack Wilder and Bear and Hare Studios. Theme song, Word Mercenaries by Craig Nivo. New episodes come out every Wednesday wherever you stream your content. If you enjoyed this podcast, you can help support us by going to anchor.fm/WriterDojo, by leaving a 5-star rating and review, and by helping to spread the word. To advertise on the Writer Dojo, email ads@writerdojo.com. All questions and comments can be emailed to questions@writerdojo.com.
The power of Larry. The Dark Master of Homelessness.